It is now time to review New Japan Pro Wrestling Sakura Genesis 2025 that happened on April 5th, just a couple of days ago, from the good old Ryogoku Kokugan in Tokyo, Japan. Let me give you the TLDR, okay? And if you want to immediately X out, you can. Don't though. You know, the more you watch, the better it is. It'll get good. There's some expectations I'm laying on myself that I probably won't live up to. But look, the long and short of this review is I like this show. I thought this ended up being a pretty good show in regards to my expectations. I mentioned on the preview last week that I was coming into the show with very, very, very low expectations. And there wasn't much here that was doing it for me, that was getting me all excited and hot and bothered. I was even doubting, is New Japan really back? Because just a couple of months ago, that's what I was talking about on this very podcast thing. I was saying, I think New Japan may be back. I think we're back in business. And this show, the card that was laid out, I kind of shrugged at it and was like, well, we'll see what happens. But turns out, wasn't really as bad as I thought it was going to be. In fact, this was a good show. Was it a great show? Is this, are we talking about the return of Wrestle Dynasty 2? Is this another New Beginning show, New Beginning 2025 show? No. We're not even close to that. But this was good. There was a lot to like on this show. There's a lot of pitfalls I feel they had set up for themselves that they deftly avoided. Let's get into it. Let's start talking about the show. First of all, how about we mention the attendance? 6,640 people were in the venue. This was New Japan's first stop at the Ryogoku this year. In comparison to last year's Sakura Genesis, same venue, same time of year, right? It was like on April 6th last year. 6,632 tickets were distributed. So they did a whole, they did a whole 8 extra people in the building, folks. 8 more people made it. We're on an upswing here. So we're basically at the same place that we were last year. That was main evented by Shingo Takagi defeating Evil Tetsuya Naito defeating Yota Tsuji was the main event, and we also had Shingo Takagi defeating Evil for the Never title. That's what we were dealing with last year. How does this fare to other events in the Ryogoku for New Japan? Well, again, this is the first time that the promotion has gone to the venue in 2025. But last year there were 4 stops. The 2 final nights of the G1 last year were in Ryogoku. 5,340 for the semifinals, and the finals on which was on August 18. So August 17 and on August 18 for the finals between Zack Sabre Jr. and Yota Tsuji. That packed in 8,056 people, which is still very, very high. And then they were back for King of Pro Wrestling just a few months later on October 14. They drew 6,211 people with the main event being Zack Sabre Jr. Defeating Tetsuya Naito to win the IWGP World Heavyweight title. So we're really in the same kind of ballpark as the regular New Japan attendance in Ryogoku does. What this says to me is that, when you look at how much more the G1 drew, we're talking 2,000 more tickets were put out there, almost, or in the vicinity of. This tells me that there's really no one still right now in New Japan, who is captivating the attention, who is grabbing grabbing the fascination of the professional wrestling fan in Japan, to the point that to the point that more and more people are joining in. There's, I think they're doing well, don't get me wrong, but I've argued that the Hirooki Goto run was probably a good decision for business. Things seem to be on an uptick in regards to attendance. The local crowd, the Japanese crowd, is clearly very much behind the push, and sometimes it does take a little time for a push to really gather steam and be excellent. I'm absolutely not going to sit here and tell you that the Hirooki Goto push is shit, that it's useless, it hasn't done anything good for business, because they drew basically the same amount as that they always do outside of the G1 finals, which you have to throw out. Like, that's the draw itself, right? The G1 finals, like, no matter, I would assume, no matter who you put in there, like it draws itself. Like, there's not much more you need to do to get a bigger house than say, well, it's the finals of the G1 climax. But back to Goto, as I was mentioning, I've made the argument that maybe from a business sense, it's a good idea that Goto continues to be champion. But I would argue here that while there absolutely is not a dip in or a significant dip in regards to how much they were able to draw here in Ryogoku, there's nothing also to demonstrate here that he is an absolute difference maker. Like, we didn't break any records here. We didn't break out of the typical mold that New Japan has in attending Ryogoku. You have the impression that they draw the 6,000, 6,500 that they usually draw for the building is pretty much their baseline. These you get the feeling that these are diehard New Japan pro wrestling fans. So again, I don't want to give the impression that I'm telling you Hirooki Goto as a draw stinks. I wouldn't say that. I think he has been a net positive over the last few shows that he's been on. And here it's pretty much stable. It's business as usual, and it's business as usual is fine, but we'll see how things continue to develop moving forward. As because at this point I don't know how long Hirooki Goto is going to hang on to the title, but they probably want to see how much more. They probably want to see how much more juice they can squeeze out of this. Maybe there will be upticks. Maybe there will be noticeable differences moving forward. Maybe the Ryogoku crowd is it is what it is, but as far as hard data right now, this show should indicate that, well, Goto he's not a bad champion. Like, we're not losing people coming in to see the shows. We're not losing paying customers, but it's not the revolution that a lot of folks are purporting it to be, and I'm including myself in that as well. But then again, it can also be an anomaly. Let's just keep that hovering. We'll put a pin in that, and we'll revisit this later down the road, whether on another review or on the podcast proper. In this segment, on the podcast, we'll keep an eye on how things are going. It's absolutely not a disaster, but with how I was perceiving the momentum and how I felt things were going, I truly believed that Goto was going to push the numbers up in Ryogoku, and in a significant matter too. And instead, we've just flatlined. Everything is standard. So yeah, again, If your standard is, 6,500, 6,000 to 6,500, I don't think that's necessarily bad, but these are not breakaway houses. Yeah, let's just go ahead. Let's start talking about the show proper. Let's start breaking down these matches, starting off with the main event. We'll go from there. Hirooki Goto successfully retained the IWGP World Heavyweight title against David Finlay. I thought this match was terrific. I thought this was so much fun. It was a really, really good match that was extremely physical. Look, all this was about was two guys pummeling each other, trying to outdo the other guy. It wasn't, fancy, but it was hard hitting. It was great. Like, this was exactly it was a Hirooki Goto special where comes in, fired up, ready for a fight, ready to go. And Dave Finlay was absolutely meeting that energy. Look, they were early on. They're, it's getting physical. They're striking each other. And then they got, they do they set up the tables on the outside when they were fighting on the floor. So there's tables out there just waiting to happen. The Chekhov's gun situation. Lots of strikes. Huge lariat by Dave Finlay that turns the tides for him. And he's just throwing Hirooki Goto around, which is, spectacular. Like I've talked about quite a bit since the start of the new year. Dave Finlay as a performer, a character, if you will, has found his footing. Like, he knows who he is in the ring now, and he's a deceptively strong guy who's just wants to bully people. That's what he wants to do. And he wants to bully children too, because he was making fun of Goto's kids were at ringside as well. He does a dominator on Goto, and then finally the tables come into play where Hirooki Goto does a Death Valley driver off the apron through the tables in a crazy spot, which I thought was absolutely tremendous. Finlay goes for the overkill. It's reversed into a Shouten Kai by Goto to a big cheer from the crowd. The Japanese audience, they love the Shouten Kai. I don't know why Goto why he ever decided to change his, wasn't that his finisher for a while? I think it was, right? I don't know why he ever decided to change that, because the crowd really, really loves the Shouten Kai. They go nuts for it. It would be such a great finisher, but that didn't finish the match. Obviously, a GTW and a couple of GTRs get the job done for Goto, who wins. Now, look, this is the decision ultimately that New Japan had to do. What are we doing moving forward? Well, they decided to go with Goto moving forward. There were compelling arguments on both sides as to deciding whether you want to move with Goto because of the business aspect, or if you want to pull the trigger on David Finlay becoming champion and having a really good heat-filled story moving forward for New Japan. And they decided to go with Goto. Now, look, again, I don't think there's necessarily a bad answer here. I thought whichever way you looked at it, whether from a business perspective or from a creative perspective, I think there were good, solid reasons to do both. I don't know if, look, to come back to my point earlier, I don't know if the fact that we drew the same in Ryogoku is an indicator that maybe already the Goto stuff is starting to peter out, that we've hit the peak, and that now it's not going to be as compelling. There would have been an argument to say, well, look, we're going to pull Goto at the height of his powers and try this on for size for a little bit. Which again, when I say this, I mean David Finlay as a champion. Which again, I think creatively speaking was probably the most interesting outcome. But I think that they clearly see positives with Goto as the top guy. I think they see the crowd reaction from Japanese audiences. Like, and look, frankly, even from us schmucks over here in North America, I haven't seen anyone outright bury the decision to not only have him be the number one contender, but take the belt off of Zack. I haven't seen anyone say, no, this was a terrible idea from the start, right? So do they feel that this groundswell will turn into paying customers? I couldn't tell you. Goto's a terrific champ. Goto is a terrific champion. I got no, like, I have nothing negative really to say. What I'm talking about is drawing ability as of now. It's more like this is what I'm observing more so than okay, my analysis is he stinks, because that's not it. I'm just wondering. I'm curious to see how much more gas is in this Goto reign. Already, yes, I know I'm all set, but again, talking from a purely business perspective. I'm not talking about the creative aspect. However, I do have to wonder about the creative direction that they are giving Goto moving forward, where he's going to be in this fight to establish who is going to lead Hantai. Is it going to be him or Shota Umino? We'll talk about Shota in a little bit. Or actually, no, you know what? Fuck it. Let's talk about it now. Because Shota Umino came out after the match to sort of set himself up as the next challenger. But I think already Hirooki Goto had called him out. Because, the story here is that despite the fact that he lost his match to Great Khan, being Shota Umino, pronouns pal. And despite the fact that he's come back, like reinvented and sort of and the idea is that he has to build his way back up, Shota Umino wants to lead Hantai, despite the fact that he's kind of disgraced. That he's, just a couple of months ago, everyone was wondering, well, who is this guy and where is he going? And not a lot of us have, our minds have not suddenly changed overnight. There's a lot of doubt that still persists in regards to Shota Umino. So it's a curious thing, because he says, look, Hiroshi Tanahashi a couple of weeks ago basically told Goto, you're the guy who's going to lead Hantai, despite the fact that Tanahashi had told Shota Umino a while back that you will be the future leader of Hantai. Now Goto's like, okay, well, there can be two leaders of Hantai. You said earlier tonight in your post-match that, you're going to be the guy who's going to lead Hantai, and so on. So there's like this clashing at the top between the bulls to lead New Japan's main unit. And this is the thing that they've decided to do. This is creatively where we're going with Umino and Goto. And I don't really care for it. I think it's kind of dumb. And the reason why is because, like I said, just a couple of months ago, not all that long ago. I say a couple of months, but Shota Umino got his head shaved in disgrace and has been in the midst of a reinvention that everyone's wondering what the reinvention is, because he just looks like himself and continues to act like himself, but without the fucking glow sticks and coming in through the audience. If this was supposed to be some kind of punishment, I don't understand how getting to the finals of the New Japan Cup, losing, but then being slated as the challenger, as the next challenger to the world champion immediately after the New Japan Cup. I don't see how this is punishment. Like, I don't, like, a lot of people thought that this would be a way for New Japan to tell Shota, get your act together. We don't know exactly what you're doing, but you can be better than this. You need to get your shit together. But it's not. Look, he comes into the New Japan into the New Japan Cup with, essentially nothing to prove. He gets a bye, he makes it to the semifinal, he makes it to the finals, and we're like, well, isn't the idea here that he's supposed to be humbling himself? That it's so strange. Like, this guy is, so far, to some degree, has been failing upward. Like, he shits the bed at a Wrestle Kingdom main event in the Tokyo Dome, doesn't live up to the standards. Everyone is like, okay, everyone. I think you'd have to be, I don't want to say everyone. That's a sweeping statement. It's a little weird, but a lot of people who were on the fence in regards to Umino finally wisened up and were like, no, okay, this guy he ain't it. And we got to stop trying to make this guy the guy. When in the meantime, you've got other ready to go young dudes who are exciting and ready that you could just push like an instant. And on top of that, the audience have already responded positively to, who accept who they are. And this is how he's getting, basically, he's being rewarded for all of this. It's losing upward. Failing upward, I should say. I don't understand. It's a really bizarre piece of booking, this is. Like, when he hit the New Japan Cup with his shaved head and whatnot, I was like, okay, are we, what's going, is the big change that he's lost confidence and, is he not going to make it, really far in the tournament and whatnot? But no. And then he wrestles Hiroshi Tanahashi. And then he gets inserted into another main event program for the world title. Just months, 4 months after completely shitting the bed. I don't get it. I do not get it. It's a very weird direction to be in. And it's kind of like with David Finlay too. I guess we're going to be doing some War Dogs versus House of Torture stuff. I don't know. But if you want to talk about interesting creative, the interesting creative here would have been Dave Finlay ending the Cinderella story and being just the top shit heel. I like David Finlay a lot more. Like his work in the new, I got on to the David Finlay train in the G1 last year. I thought he was phenomenal. He did some great work, and he has been he's been a solid top guy moving forward since then. It's been really amazing. Creatively, it would have been a lot more interesting if he won the title, but I understand that they're trying another direction, which is a viable direction. But I still think David Finlay is going to be an IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And will it be this year? Well, because as I thought, I still have a feeling he could do it. I still have a feeling that he might be an appropriate candidate. I'm not letting go of it just yet. Not just yet. As we get closer to Dominion, let's have this conversation again. We most certainly will. But as it stands, like I think there's still David Finlay has always lost upward. Every time he's dropped the title, he's won a title higher. So he's not done. He's not done yet. But yeah, look, the great main event. I gave it 4.25 stars. I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought it was a big. You know what? Honestly, I'm going to bump it up to 4.5. Come to think of it, because it was just let's do it. 4.5 stars, live and on the air. Bump it up a full quarter star, because the final stretch I thought was great and had a lot of and was really hard hitting and was tremendous. Lots of creative stuff happening. Look, I thought this was a tremendous main event for this card. So that of course, that of course does a lot of good things for your perception of a card when your main event lands the way it does. Let's go down the card this way then. We'll stay in the business end and go all the way to the opener. Yota Tsuji defeated Evil to retain the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. This is going to sound weird to say, but Evil is going to have to win some big matches at some point. He's going to have to win some big matches. I was kind of expecting him to win here because he's as a threat, I don't think he's as interesting or as scary as he was. I think we've moved into an era of House of Torture where no one really sees Evil as a threat, but the shenanigans. So it makes the shenanigans even more annoying because it never really feels like they will have an impact on the match and help Evil win a match maybe that a lot of people felt that he shouldn't. And at some point I was watching the match and I was like, well, what if Evil should win? What if Evil does win? What if he does take the title? Wouldn't that put some heat on him? Which is, I think, like, it's weird to say, but I think that is really, really needed right now because I think the House of Torture concept right now is just a bunch of little jesters running around, a bunch of imps. You got a little bunch of imps running around doing like stuff, but it never really, and breaking the flow of a match, but for no reason. It just ends up being nothing. So, I believe, and you can take me to task on this if you like, but I think Evil has to win some big matches. I think he's got to start winning some stuff and not just always dropping the opportunity to win a title because he couldn't make it happen. Because that's how he's booked, It's like he's got to feel like a threat. I don't think House of Torture feels like a threat, and there's going to be people who are going to be really happy about that, And I can't say that I'm disappointed in that regard, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that the interference that happens that is a trademark of House of Torture matches is much less compelling if the outcome is always Evil loses LOL. Because then the interference is just annoying. It doesn't bring anything to the table. You're not sitting there with bated breath saying, oh my God, there's so much, you got Dick Togo over here and Sho over there and Takahashi over there, Yujiro, of course, over there doing stuff. And this might all come together and my guy, the babyface, might lose. Oh my God. And it's going to be so shitty. Now it's just shitty stuff for shitty stuff's sake. And it never works out in the end. And I think that's worse because you're disrupting the flow of the match to have the interference, but there's really it never ends up helping the heel win. It's lost the edge of, oh shit, something bad might happen. And now it's just, here we go again. You know what I mean? If we had the menace of the interference perhaps hurting the match, then it'd be something different. Anyway, I liked this Evil match much more than I thought I would. I thought this was good. I thought this was a good match overall. Yota Tsuji bringing out his twin brother again. I spotted it this time. Fool me once, shame on me, right? Fool me twice, you won't get fooled again. When Yota Tsuji was coming to the ring, with his head bowed, with the hat and whatnot, I was like, wait a second, that's not Yota Tsuji. Like I was literally sitting there saying, no shot, that's not Yota Tsuji. Doesn't look as beefy. That's not him, right? And I was right. Yota Tsuji, just using a little guile to get one up on the House of Torture guys. And he's the brother, they mentioned it again. He's a stuntman for in the movie industry or the entertainment industry at the very least. So, it's still wild to me that this guy is not a performer. He's not a pro wrestler, but he's there taking bumps, and he's selling. I'm like, all right, I'm not saying like suddenly I want to see him wrestle, but he can handle himself. He doesn't look like a complete goofball. There was a story nonetheless to this match. There was good stuff in this match where essentially the House of Torture were working the knee. They were working one of Yota Tsuji's knees, and that really was the through line here. So it wasn't just things being thrown around. It wasn't just like interference for interference sake. Most of the interference and the stuff that they were doing was to focus on Tsuji's knee. And Evil, when he decided to work, well, he focused on that, locked in the sharpshooter or the darkness scorpion. And Tsuji's knee is bothering him. I think he did a pretty good job selling that as well. And then, there's a lot of interference, like they drag out, they being the House of Torture, they drag back out Tsuji's brother to sort of, I don't know, to distract Tsuji, and it kind of worked. But then Shingo ran out to sort of even the odds and like, no, this fucking shit is enough. There's low blows that are happening even by Tsuji, who does a stun dog millionaire and a Falcon Arrow on Evil. There's ref bumps. Look, you kind of see how everything is going, but I thought Evil did a lot of good work in this match. I thought Tsuji did some solid work here as well. But, there's so much nonsense here. We're getting the powder to the face. We're getting the whiskey mist from Yoshinobu Kanemaru. There's so much stuff going on, but there's just so much going on. It's hard for me to get into, but what was good here was good. I like the finish, big definitive win by Tsuji, who did the knee strike, who did the Marlowe crash, and then did the Gene Blaster for the win. Look, let's go ahead and give it 3.5 stars. And I'm surprised myself, but I think it worked. I think it was good stuff. I didn't expect Evil to win, and maybe I should. And again, like I said, I think we got to go. I think we have to go harder on this and have Evil win some matches once in a while. Next, Callum Newman and Jeff Cobb defeated Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito to become the new IWGP Tag Team titles champions. They won the titles. Look, man, there's just the first half of this match is just stuff happening and nothing really bad about it, but it's just like stuff happening. It's just really average. We get a couple of creative spots like Hiromu Takahashi crossbodying Jeff Cobb when he has Tetsuya Naito up for a tour of the islands, which I thought was good. Sequence of guys throwing big moves and I can't argue that the crowd's not getting into it. Callum Newman lands the Oz Cutter and the Firebolt, but Tetsuya Naito kicks out. Tour of the Islands into a Razor's Edge jumping knee combo by the United Empire guys. And the final stretch I thought was pretty exciting, but the rest, and then the Firebolt by Callum Newman on Naito gets the win. So this is like the first time that Newman actually pins Tetsuya Naito in a match. They've been having like a low-key singles rivalry, I guess. And so this was the big win for him. They're the new champions. Final stretch was exciting. The rest of the match was really kind of, I gave it 3 stars. And look, look here. I like Jeff Cobb enough, right? I really do like Jeff Cobb. But what was his plan here with the oh, you thought I was leaving? How take that, internet kind of thing. It's like, what kind of gotcha? Like, this was a very lame gotcha. Like, this was very lame because I don't remember who reported this first about Jeff Cobb being on the roster for WWE. Like, this was This is clearly Jeff Cobb leaking this information, right? This is clearly Jeff Cobb talking, right? And trying to plant a story so that people would get into it and talk about it and get, have this spread around. I talked about it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you hear the news and you're like, well, this is significant. It's, and then you don't hear much of it for a while. And then he's in the New Japan Cup and he wins in the New Japan Cup and he sticks around. And then he does this match here and he wins the titles, the tag team titles. I'm like, okay. So it at some point when he was winning his matches in the New Japan Cup, I was like, okay, something's fishy with the report. Like I immediately there started thinking, this doesn't seem quite right. This doesn't seem quite right. I don't think he has been signed with WWE. I think, everyone just stops talking about it, right? Everyone just stops talking about it because it's, no disrespect. Like I said, I like Jeff Cobb, but he's not like this world-shattering signing. It's not as if Tetsuya Naito was suddenly signed by WWE and then you're like, wow, okay, this is a big transaction. This is a big deal, That's a big jump for multiple reasons. Jeff Cobb, it's like, okay, Jeff Cobb's on the roster. Okay, cool. Everyone was sort of wishing him well, going, all right, on your way then. Good luck. Thank you for your service here in New Japan. Everyone was sort of like just shrugging their shoulders and saying to each other, well, all right, it's fine. Fine. Turns out, he was hoping this story would gain more traction, or at least in his mind, he thought it got a lot of traction because when he was on when he grabbed the microphone, off of commentary and started saying, oh yeah, checkmate internet or whatever. I'm like, what? Well, no one at this point really believes you're going, Jeff. Like, I think we all sort of shrugged our shoulders like, well, I think a lot of us were just like, no, he's probably not going anymore. Like he probably just threw that out there for multiple reasons, whatever reasons, leverage, just to get his name out there, and he saw this as like this grand coup, right? Like if he's going around planting stories, right? And he was the only guy who was really talking about it, in his post-match promos and stuff like that. Like everyone had sort of like given up on the story. Like it wasn't the talk of the town that I think he in his brain thought it was. And then he goes, yeah, and then, haha, gotcha. I just stuck it to the internet. Alan Forel had a really good comparison. He compared this to the Eric Bischoff Sid thing, as, Cobb is saying over and over, haha, eat shit, internet. I got you. Got him, Like, okay, that's fine. I don't know. Whatever. I just thought it was a little awkward. Dare I say cringe. I don't know. I don't know what the big gotcha was, but congratulations on winning the titles with Callum Newman, who I still don't. I don't get it. I really don't. Konosuke Takeshita retained the never openweight title against Ryohei Oiwa in a phenomenal match. Like, my God. Like this was the match I was most looking forward to on the card, and it delivered exactly what I needed. Just physicality, big moves, and smartly put together, right? And a nice showcase of Oiwa's work, right? On the preview, I mentioned that I felt like Oiwa's work shined more in Noah than it does now in New Japan. And I don't know why exactly, but he had the opportunity and the opponent to really be able to dig deep, try some stuff out. And boy, oh boy, this ruled. This was absolutely tremendous. I loved it so much. I thought it was a tremendous match. I love the spot where Oiwa has Takeshita in a, I guess like some kind of scissor hold, arm scissor or whatever. Not a scissor hold, but some kind of arm lock or whatever. And Takeshita arm drags him over to try and get him to release the hold, but Oiwa doesn't. There's this great spot I loved where Oiwa had Takeshita in an arm lock, a scissor, whatever. But he's got him in this arm lock, and Takeshita, to get out of it, picks him up, scoops him, and slams him down. But Oiwa doesn't let go. Instead, arm dragging, he holds onto the hold, so that arm drags Takeshita down, and Oiwa stays in control. It's just like a perfect snap. Like, it's just such great execution. And we have superplexes, we've got Germans, we've got exploders, we've got flying knees, rolling deadlift Germans by Takeshita. You know, we're getting the hits and then some. I believe this is Ryohei Oiwa's best New Japan match since he's come back from excursion. And that's what I was expecting out of this match. And that's what we got. And it's crazy to me that we're focusing on Shota Umino still to get the job done or, you know, do whatever. And that kid is right there. And he's hungry. And he's got the charisma. And he's got the fire. And he's got the talent. Like, this is a guy whose ceiling is so high. Why are we wasting our time on other dudes who are schlubs, essentially? I mean, maybe this is the start of the push, right? This could be it. We never know. We never know until the G1 happens. We never know until the G1 happens what Gato's master plan is for his promotion, but we're going to get there. And this was tremendous. And I loved it so fucking much. This match was great. Takeshita, incapable of having a bad match. I'm going to give this 4.25 stars. He and Takeshita, of course, wins the match with a raging fire. The final stretch again was really good. I don't know what I don't know what we're doing with Oiwa. I don't know why this guy's not being pushed to the moon. I really don't understand. The House of Torture trio of Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi retained their never open-weight six-man tag team title against the Bullet Club trio of Drilla Maloney, Gabe Kidd, and Taiji Ishimori. I look, this is a 2.5 star match. That's fine. It just it needn't be. It was short. I think that's its winning combination here. They brawl a lot into the audience, and basically this is all a setup for Sanada to come in and officially turn on the War Dogs and join the House of Torture side with his big red, Super Mario boots or whatever. 2.5 stars, but mercifully short. Did the story, it told the story it had to tell. Let's move on. Shota Umino defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. Look, I thought this was very good, a very, very good performance from 2025 Hiroshi Tanahashi. I haven't seen, on his retirement tour so far, I haven't seen him this dynamic, this good. There was clearly something he worked hard to do here, which I think is help get Shota Umino over. And the match was better for it. I don't know if Umino really went above and beyond here. I don't think he did. Am I seeing a renewed, reinvigorated Shota Umino? I am not necessarily, but he wasn't bad here. All the little gripes that I have with him were still present in this match, but I think Tanahashi did tremendous work, and Shota had a solid match, which was good. I enjoyed it. I thought this one was going to be one that I was just going to hand wave, easily, but turns out, no, I didn't. I gave this match 3.5 stars. I thought it was really good. Tanahashi hits the straight jacket German, a sling blade. He goes for the aces high, misses the high fly flow, of course. Running knee to the back of the head of Shota Umino, which was a really cool spot. And then he lands another to Tanahashi's face. Tanahashi fights back, but the second chapter lands, and Umino puts him away. It's good. It was good, and set up, for the main event angle later on, the main event call out, I guess. And just to be clear, I know that Umino is fighting Goto like at Windy City Riot this weekend, at Windy City Riot. So, this whole thing about Umino being put in a main event spot, maybe it's not meant to be as extensive as I imagine it, but nonetheless, he is still put in a top spot. He's still in a top spot. He's still doing these big top guy things. Even if it's just a one-off at Windy City Riot and that's the end of it, we're still doing this, right? Just wanted to make sure that was clear. Should have said that earlier, but I'm saying it now. The Great Okan defeated El Fantasmo to become the new New Japan World Television Champion. A good match. I thought this was pretty good. Early in the match, ELP does the springboard body press over the gate to the floor, which is always something that is completely bonkers. Great Okan body slams him onto the rail, which was a nice little spot. Great Okan makes a structure with some chairs, and he works ELP's shoulder, which is also significant in the match. That's going to be a story in the match here. He already came in with the shoulder being a little weakened. ELP avoids an eliminator and lands a swing DDT. They trade some blows. He lands the UFO and the CR2, but we're not putting Great Okan away. There's some shenanigans on the floor. Great Okan drives El Fantasmo through the chair structure, and basically ELP cannot beat the 10 count to get back into the ring. The 20 count, I should say, excuse me. He can't beat the 20 count. And essentially, Great Okan wins the title via countout, which is a thing in New Japan. That is something that a title can change on a countout. And that's exactly what happened. So Great Okan wins the title. I enjoyed ELP's little run. I think he had a nice little run. Nothing out of the ordinary, but nothing bad. I thought it was pretty good. Great Okan, look, we're going to have to see how that develops, because there's there's times where Great Okan hits the ring and he's motivated and he's into it, and then you see all the great things about Great Okan where it's like, okay, these are all the things that make him special. But he's oftentimes hit and miss, and he hit on this match. Is he going to hit elsewhere? Tune in to find out, I guess. I don't know. 3.25 star for me. And finally, we had Yuya Uemura defeating Sanada in the opener of the show. I really don't have many notes. However, this was a 10-minute match, just a little over 10 minutes. And I thought this was very good. and I'm aware that this is a Sanada match, but I think that the fact that the match was relatively short and that both guys had their working boots on and Uemura was ready to go, I think that it helped the structure of the match. It felt it felt like it had a fast pace and kept Sanada from falling into his worst habits, where he oftentimes will do things that are very, that get stretched out too long, that are maybe a little boring. The longer a match goes in a Sanada match, the worse it has a tendency to be. I think this kept him from getting into those bad habits. I thought this was really good. I thought Uemura looked great. All I'm hoping moving forward now is that this Uemura Sanada stuff can be pushed aside, set away. Let's not talk about this again, kind of thing. We don't have to ever revisit this, and that'll be fine. Uemura was very good and looked like a champ. And again, forgot to mention that Uemura did come to challenge Yota Tsuji, just as Yota Tsuji was about to challenge him for the global title. So that's something I can sink my teeth into. Then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And Uemura looked great here as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good to come out of this. Uemura looked good. I enjoyed this match. 3.5 stars if you want to believe that. So there you go. That should wrap up the review of this show. So again, like as you can tell, I like this show. I thought this was good. Great show. No, good. Absolutely. Absolutely watch the main event and Takeshita versus Oiwa. Those are your must-see matches, I would say. If you've got a little more time on your hands, watch Yumera versus Sonata. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. Shota Umino and Tanahashi as well, I thought was pretty good. Yeah, got a little more time on your hands, but I highly recommend the main event and the Never Openweight match. There you go. That about does it for the review of Sakura Genesis 2025.